Hi, Dr. Nelson here from CounselingTransforms.com, where we help our clients achieve their best self, better relationships, and a more balanced life. John Gottman is an authority on marriage. He's been studying marriage for like 30 years. He can predict with around a 94% accuracy rate whether someone is going to divorce within the next 3 or 4 years. Gottman has also identified what he calls the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse when it comes to a relationship. So the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse are criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. Today's topic is Relationship Armageddon #1 in a series. And this one is about stonewalling. Most people stonewall, at least to some degree, and sometimes that's appropriate behavior, but generally speaking, stonewalling is damaging to a relationship because it shuts down communication. So typically what happens is one person just puts a wall up, blocks the other person, doesn't respond, doesn't engage, doesn't express. Guys tend to be better at this, or at least practice it more often than women do. However, both sexes can stonewall on occasion. But it can really be disruptive to a relationship because it shuts down the ability to communicate and develop emotional intimacy or keep emotional intimacy. And it does quite the opposite. Somewhat related, there's a psychological coping mechanism that's called projection, and that can really kind of take stonewalling to a whole new level. It's really like stonewalling on steroids, and there really isn't any antidote for this because when someone projects and as a means of stonewalling, it actually locks the other person out. So let me explain a little bit about projection. Projection is me thinking for somebody else, like what they're thinking, what they're feeling, thinking I know what that is, and then projecting it onto them, kind of like if they were standing there and showed a movie over them, it would obscure who they really are. That's kind of what projection does. The other interesting thing about projection is that the person that is projecting is convinced that they are correct in their assumption. Another piece of the puzzle here is people that are really good at projection, usually what's going on is they have become good at reading people and looking for little signs or tells about what's going on. Typically that comes from family of origin. It's not so much that they don't sense something or that there isn't something there, but the interpretation is where it breaks down because we really can't mind read other people. We might be able to tell somebody's upset, but then we have to fill in those gaps with our imagination. And that's what stonewalling is all about. So we fill in the gaps in my own mind, and then I convince myself that I'm accurate and that it's real. And the problem with that is there is no defense. For example, if I said, you don't care, and you actually do care, you could say, yes, I do, but I would just counter with what? No, you don't. And then we just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it's kind of like a deflector shield bubble that locks the other person out. And so whenever we're telling somebody else what they're thinking or they're feeling, that's a problem because only they know really what they're thinking and feeling. And it's better to go by the evidence, the more objective evidence, which is what they actually tell me. So projection is damaging. It locks the other person out, and it usually gives me a false sense of what's going on, although it can feel really, really real to me. And that's kind of where it gets problematic. So let me give you another example just to kind of prove this. Now you kind of have to be honest with me on this, but I'm going to show you that projection isn't really possible. So I am thinking of an animal, and I want you to try to guess what it is. So tell me what I'm thinking. Aardvark. Nobody ever gets aardvark. So chances are you weren't thinking aardvark, and that's proof that we can't read minds and that projection is really all my imagination, even though it feels real. And when we catch ourselves projecting, the best thing to do is to acknowledge it. In fact, when I do that, I tell myself, hey, you know what? I am making this up and it's feeling real, but it's really just my imagination. And then if the other person is relatively healthy or safe, I'll just ask them, hey, you know, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? It's a much more productive way of communication rather than blocking that person out by stonewalling or by using projection, which is stonewalling on steroids. The secret that he has come up with through all this research that he's done over the last 30 years is there's a ratio that is important for couples to know. It's a 5-to-1 ratio. So couples that do well over the long haul have 5 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction.